I'm CK. The last few eurorack modules I've built have been all surface mount pre-installed, so there hasn't been a lot to do, and I want to do more. So I went back to the source for doing more, for having more resistors on a board than anyone could possibly imagine, which is Befaco. And this is the Befaco Bandit, what they call a spectral processing playground. Let me read a little bit. It's a combination of bandpass filters, VCAs, and routing options. It serves multiple functions, including equalizer, crossover, multiband VCA, 4-band spectral mixer, and spectral external FX insertion point. So that sounds really good. And we'll take a look at the parts, and I'm sure there are a lot of them. Put it together, see how it sounds. And I hope you like the video. Here's the bag. And as is often the case, I picked this up at thonk.co.uk, as I get many of my eurorack modules. So we'll take that out. It has a build guide, QR code, but I already brought the build guide up, so I don't have to worry about that. Let's take a look at the circuit board and front panel. And what do we have here? Where's my pointy thing? We've got a couple of things here. Don't know what those are. Let's take a look as well. Those are going to be... I'm not quite sure what those are. I think they're jacks, but I'm not... Yeah, I think they're jacks. Huh, interesting. Then we've got band ins, band outs, various, oh no, sorry. Oh, those are band ins, those are band outs, those are the returns. Here's some sliders, low, low mid, and high. And I assume those are pots. No, they're not going to be pots because it's got sliders right there. What the heck am I talking about? Probably inputs. Then oh, those are CV ins. I'm sorry, I should just read it, shouldn't I? All in, all CV, and mix out. And it looks like I got two LEDs here. Yep, sure does. So as we look at this, we can see that it is mostly surface mount pre-installed. Whole bunch of componentry that's already there. We've got this little piece of thing that's got two. This breaks off, but it's got a couple of points there. I don't know what that's for. Maybe it's just index for manufacturing. Then on this side, oh, we've got more ICs though. We've got ICs all over here. Give us something to solder. Oh, that's going to be interesting. So one thing... No, that's not going to be that interesting. I'm sorry, I got confused. Where are the pin headers? Oh, the pin headers are going to be right here. That's what's going to connect the two boards together. Not many connections. That's interesting. Bunch of capacitors, bunch of resistors, and as we all know and love, circuit board traces with nary a straight line among them, all curling and twisting and bending around. So that looks good. Let's go in here and see what we've got for componentry we're going to be adding. The ICs first. If I can get this bag open. Get my scissors out because I can't find the starting point. And what do we have here? We have TL072s. Those are all op amps, and it looks like there are 8 op amps. Then we've got AS3360s with dots, which means they may be programmable. Let me look that up real quick. Okay, so those are more op amps. So we've got TI op amps, and we've got this other op amp from some other manufacturer. I don't know who they are. I don't recognize an R with a circle. But we got bunches of op amps to put on that side of the board. Then we've got our resistor pack and some ferrite beads, meaning we have to keep track of 2 or 3 resistor leads to make sure we can put the ferrite beads on the board. Some polarity protection diodes, power cable, bunch of capacitors, decoupling caps for all the op amps, and then a bunch of other 1 nano film caps and some 4 and 7 film caps. That's interesting. Here we've got our sliders. They usually use good quality sliders. And our pin headers already pre-cut for us. And 1 green LED and 1 red LED. Okay. A couple of Befaco stickers. I already have a ton of those. And our jacks, and that's it. And some caps to go over the slider handles. And the pretty Befaco panel nuts in burgundy and black. So that's the bit. Oh, and of course, my like 23rd Befaco panel nut wrench. I need to create a forest of those or something. So I'll get the soldering iron heated up, and we'll start putting this fella together. Brought the build guide up, and it's a typical Befaco build guide. All text, no pictures. I wish they would add pictures, but it's good, it's comprehensive. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to split these two boards apart. Should be easy, yeah, it can part very easily. Now we're going to do the resistors. We're going to start out with the we're going to start out with the 100Ks. Let me get this organized so I'm not losing anything. There's a bunch of 100Ks. And it's interesting. The build guide's a little funny here today. It says quantity 1 of 100K, but they've got all the positions because it's clearly not just 100K. And they always recommend just testing the values with the meter, and that's coming in at, well, I can't tell because I'm not pushing hard enough. Come on. Let me get my alligator clips instead, because I'm not getting a good connection simply by pushing the leads against the leads, so to speak. So these are 100.4K, which is pretty danged good. And I'm going to take one out first and tip. These are 1/4 watt resistors, not half watt, which often happens. And there's R1, which is where this first one will go. So I don't think we need to bend the leads right up against the body, but we do need to have them no further out than about 1 millimeter away from the body. So let's solder that one resistor so we can get a good sense for how the board's taking solder, even though I expect it will be just dandy. Befaco uses great board manufacturers. And there. That worked out just fine. So that's, let me double check these. 1, 2. Yeah, we've got enough resistors. We've got the right amount. And since we've done one, and we've got about 25, 30 more to go, not much more to say about the resistors, so we will mute the commentary, mute the audio, and speed up the playback, probably cut some of it out, because it's time to enjoy resistor time. That's resistor time for this kit. Only unusual thing is this resistor at R35 is a 1/2 watt resistor, not like the quarters, so it's too big for the template they use, so you got to kind of stand it up. Not a big deal. Next, we're going to do some power conditioning. So down here on the positive and the negative rail, we're going to put our ferrite bead or inductor in and 2 diodes, and then we'll be putting some capacitors in, but for right now we're going to do our ferrite beads. And there's one of them, and that's what we saved the resistor lead for. I saved 4 resistor leads even though I only need 2, because you never know. So you put it through the center of the ferrite, bend the leads over, making it like a little resistor or capacitor, put it in the holes marked F1 and F2, and I'm going to solder these immediately because they're not necessarily 100% secure. Let me get my meter out of the way. You can't see it, but it's in my way. That's 2 of them, or that's 1 of them. Now we'll get the other one. Kind of put the resistor lead through it, bend it over, giving it enough space so you can solder when it goes through the board, of course. So I got to take a look at something here. Oh, okay. I confused myself for a moment, but I'm not confused anymore about that particular thing. Next are the 2 diodes, the 5817s, to prevent damage if you accidentally put the power connector in wrong. And it's got a silver stripe there, and there's a white stripe here, as well as a diode symbol that will show you how it goes on. It goes in. And as always, whenever you build anything with diodes in it, if it doesn't work when you turn it on, the first thing you should check is to make sure you got the polarity on the diodes wrong. And if that is the case, you should be happy, because that's a real easy thing to fix. Now these diode leads are thicker in diameter than the resistor, capacitor leads, and so on. So you got to give them a little more heat to melt the solder through. Now we're going to put all the IC sockets on. Oops. First I'm going to drop them all, because that's what I do. Bunch of 8 pins for the 072 op amps, and these 14 pins for these special op amps. They must be lower noise or something like that. I don't know for sure. I haven't worked with that op amp before. Or if I have, it's gone out of my mind, which is not in and of itself unusual. Set them all in place. There are notches on the socket, little cutouts on the socket that you want to have matching the notches on the circuit board, so you know which way to put the chips in when we get to that step, even though really even if the socket has a notch in it, you should also just look at the printing underneath it, because there's always a chance you put a socket on backwards. Put all those in there, grab a little card, hold the card like that, slide it out, and all the sockets are in place. And I think they're not lower than that. Oh, there we go. Because that resistor is standing up, I have to go to the edge of my solder pad. And I'm going to flip it over and make sure everything's flat on the board. And it all is. So let me grab about 1.5 foot of solder. And I'll solder all the socket pins. And that's all those guys. I'm going to double check this just to make sure I got all the pins. I did. Now, get rid of these extra resistor leads I had out. Now we'll do the capacitor bag. There's a bunch of capacitors, and we're going to start with 20 104s, 100 nanofarad decoupling caps. Now they've kind of torn them off the backing cardboard, but what I recommend, instead of trying to fight them out of this paper, just clip them off and have them fly across your workbench. Just clip them off, because then you won't damage anything by fighting with the tape. So I'll do that real quick, speed through this. Now we'll put them all on the board. Most of them are going to be near the IC sockets, because again, they're decoupling caps. They're power conditioning for the IC. They provide a little power buffer for changes in supply voltage that might happen along the way. They also take out a little bit of noise that may enter the circuit. I gotta find... So again, just look, if you're searching for these, and they're, again, because there's a bunch of them, just first off, just look near the sockets, because that's very likely where they are. Now we'll do the 1 nanofarads. Should have 10 of them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And that's those folks. I'm going to recycle the cameras because the timer on them is about running out. Next, the 4.7 nanos. Here we are. Here we are. There's only 2, 4, 6 of those. And I'll go put the 2N2s on. I'm going to do all the rest of the film caps. Now the electrolytics, and I think they're all 10 microfarad. Let me see. It should be 6, 2, 4, 6, and they're all 10 nanos. And there are 2 indicators on the circuit board. There are the plus and minus signs, and then there's a flat spot on the outline where the stripe goes. So you should be able to get the long lead into the plus side, short lead into the negative side, and the stripe, which is on the negative side, against the flat side. And I think, oh, we want to do the pin headers next. Okay. So the pin headers are going to go on this side because this is the back where the power connector will be, so putting the pin headers here. Let me get that bag out. Pin headers and sliders are actually in this bag, and the LED. And this one goes where? Right here. So I'm going to do this today. I'm going to put the female side on here also. And I'm going to get the other board and stack it on. So now all the pin headers are in place. They're not soldered obviously yet, but I'll go ahead and put a clamp on here. Keep them all together. Everything is straight. I've got to break that extra sprue off, but I'll get to that in a little bit. We're not keeping these on permanently. I'm just doing this so I know they're aligned. That's all of those. Take the clamp back off, separate the boards again, but we know that they were aligned when they were installed, so when it comes time to put them together later, it'll be straightforward. Now we'll take the power connector, and it's got a little notch in it, and there's a little notch on the outline on the board, but since we're skeptical by nature, we'll take our power cable and we'll put it in the way the notches line up, and we'll see that the red line is matched up with the negative bar, the white line on the board, which tells us it's in the right place, right orientation. If it's not, it won't work. Fortunately, the 2 diodes that we put on here, here, and here will keep things from hopefully blowing up if you put the power connector on wrong, but should be easy enough to get it on right. And that is it for this board. Again, I'm going to make one more pass just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Maybe clean up a couple of wires here and there. Make sure I didn't miss anything, make sure there's not anything shorting out. And we'll put the ICs on much later, because now we're going to move on to this board, and I am going to break this sprue on the outside off. Now he wants us to put the spacers on, these little guys. Should be 2 holes for them. I think it's this hole and this hole, I'm pretty sure. Again, one reason why it would certainly be nice to have some pictures on here. These don't have to be super tight. And they're nylon plastic spacers, so you don't want to put too much torque on them or else you will strip them out. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break now before we get into the other controls. So back in 1 cross dissolve. Alright, now they would like us to put the faders on, and there's the pins are, there's 2 pins on the top, 1 pin on the bottom, so they're easy to orient correctly. And they have a good friction fit, which is nice. They slide well. I got cat hair on them, of course, because I get cat hair on everything. Now these are less critical for making sure that they fit through the panel. There's lots of slop around the slider handles, so you don't have to solder, and because of the way the pins are oriented, you don't really have to worry about having the front panel on to make sure they fit. If you can get them on, they will fit through the front panel. Now we'll solder all these. Be aware, up here by the pin headers, you're pretty close to the plastic, so be careful. You're not too close to the surface mount components, but down here you're a little bit close. So I'm going to do these first. You're real close to this cap, but they're even closer pins. It looks like one of the ground pins for one of the jacks is very close. We'll see that when we get to it. That's all the slider pins. Double checking again. Always double checking. Now the rest, actually there's not much more. I'm sorry, there's usually knobs and stuff, but there's just the jacks and the LEDs left to do. So they suggested doing the jacks first. I'm going to do the LEDs first just because that's the kind of guy I am. And LED 1 is green, LED 1 is red. Long lead goes into the one marked with the positive plus sign. green one goes in LED 2. Now we'll put all the jacks on board, going from the inside to the outside. Now on this end under here, because the fader pin is here, they had to offset the ground pin for these 4 top jacks by about 2 millimeters. So you got to get that ground pin in, then move a little bit to the side to get the 2 other pins in. Now on this end, they not only offset the pin, but the jacks are sharing a pin, a ground pin. Now all the jacks are on. I'm not going to solder them until we put the front panel on. So we make sure everything is all aligned perfectly. If they're not quite lined up, get my pointy thing and see who's causing a problem. There we go. Once again, grab my little clamp out. Somebody asked about this a couple of weeks ago. These are Wolfcraft. I got them at Home Depot. I'll try and remember to put a link down in the description below so you can pick them up. If I forget, which I usually do when I say I'm going to put something in the description, just leave a comment and say, you forgot again, and I will put it in. Now, I'm going to solder all the jacks. I am not going to solder the LEDs yet. Now this is where you're going to have to be careful. There are pins right amongst all the surface mount components. So practice really good soldering iron discipline. Okay, and all those guys are on now. Again, let me take this clamp off, even though none of the panel nuts are on, so it would slide away on me if I wasn't careful. I'm going to take a quick look at, actually let me go ahead and poke the LEDs through. Now, as you can see, these poke way far out. Actually, I'm going to put the clamp back on while I'm doing these LEDs. Never mind. Forgot about them. What I'm going to do is I want them to be flush with the panel. I don't want them protruding. Just personal preference. So I'm going to take a little painter's tape, a little blue tape, put it here on the front panel, then push the LEDs in, and the tape keeps them from going further out of the front. Now we'll solder those legs. Now I'll take the tape off, and as you can see, they're flush with the front panel, which is the look I personally prefer. Next is to put the panel nuts on. Now Befaco has a standard. They use the burgundy colored ones for outs and the black colored panel nuts for ins. So I'm gonna screw 2 of these down to make sure the front panel just stays in place. And now I'll put all the rest on, including the one I dropped. Hold on a second, I gotta go see, I dropped a black one. If it had been a red one, it would have been easier to see. So we're going to put all the panel nuts on. Now I'm going to put the slider caps on. Now we'll finish up the main board by putting all the ICs in, which I didn't do before because I wasn't completely ready for that. And pretty easy. The two 14-pin chips are the same, so you don't have to worry about which goes in which socket. Now all the 072s. I'm sorry, the camera's timed out just as I was getting done. So I put the two boards together, screwed the spacers in, put the power connector on, and now that's the front, the side, the back, the other side, the top, and the bottom. And there's no calibration for this unit, so we will just put it in the rack and start mixing and doing other interesting things with it. We're in the rack. I haven't fired it up yet. I did do some wiring just because there's a bunch of stuff to do with this, get it out of the way, and as we demo this, I may have some video cuts as I do some rearrangement. So let's power it up, see if anything catches fire. Nothing catches fire, and our output LED, let me see if that's on the camera, it should be. It's not. Let me zoom in a little bit. Oh, it's hidden behind the cables. You can see the green LED saying that it is a fine signal, not clip, is going on. Now, let's look at our power. Running 52 milliamps on the plus line, 49 on the other. Peak was 51 and 54. But we'll just set that back now. I'm going to turn it up. And that's with everything at Unity coming out the mid, let me go to Unity here. Oh, I don't have my mixer turned up. So that's the way it sounds from that little sequence. And this is coming out of the mix out right now and the all in. Let me start adjusting things. That took everything out. So this is mostly high end. Actually, let me pull the band ins out for right now. So you can hear how that's working as a filter. For different bands. Now I'm going to take an LFO and put the LFO into all LFOs. As it goes to 0, it shuts them off. And you can maybe able to see the red LED saying it's clipping. Now I'm going to take it out of there and put it in here. expect, but that's okay. I'm going to go switch around here a little bit and go band in. So that's only going into this band. And I'm going to try doing a return here. Now I'm going to try this. That's with the LFO. I'm going to go very low speed. Now it's going to 0, coming up again. So that's coming out the mix out. I'm going to go over here and do this band out. That's on this band now. So I'm going to do something else here for a second. I'm going to do a bunch of cable switching. Now we've got individual bands coming out. Let me normalize everything. And it's coming into my mixer so I can adjust the volume of each. That's... So by having individual band outs, we can adjust whatever we want. Let me put this LFO in again. I'm going to try it over here. I'm going to go band in here. And that these are no longer active, but I'm going to take the output from there and put it in here just because I want to. Make sure everything's up. That didn't do exactly what I wanted because I didn't do it right. I'm going to go in here and in here. So that's what it sounds like with just one out. I'm going to go back to all in. And I'm going to switch back, going out from the individual outs, go back to mix out. That's pretty neat. Take the band out, back out, but then we come back in. Take all those outs out. I'm going to go around here, go from this output, from this output to this return. And that's the one that's got the LFO on it. Turn the LFO over here. So again, it's pretty good. It's a nice graphic equalizer. Let me take everything out here. I'm going to go do this. Try if this does anything. So as you can see, it's a very good graphic equalizer. I'm going to put this in the low again. I'm not getting anything out of the low. Not quite sure why. You can hear it a little bit. Now I've got the LFO going very quickly. So you can hear how it's reacting. Take that back out. I'm going to send this. You can see it's clipping. I've taken it out of clip. Take that back out. So that's what it does. It's a nice little equalizer, and again, you can pull each individual frequency band out and put it into a mixer, or just cherry pick the frequency bands you want to use. And as you saw, it's half surface mount, half through hole, so it took about an hour to put all the through hole components on. Not bad. And the voltage it's using, milliamps it's using, is actually lower than they say. They say it's about 70 milliamps, but I'm pulling 56 with a peak of 68, which is not too bad. So that's the Befaco Bandit, and I finally figured out as I was looking through it, Bandit, frequency Bandit. I get it, I get the name. Took me like a couple of days to figure it out. But that's it, and another good one from Befaco. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video.